realize your connection to God's source and that it's all really right here with you and that you are not alone and you never were and you don't have to accept those ideas anymore, there was also the stuff of how did it get to be a mess like this? And that story seemed to be never-ending as well, as far as the conflict dramas that came up with what are referred to as fallen angelic groups from the Atlantean period and from before. We've seen a huge history that's been really one of the parts I've most disliked teaching. I knew it was important, or they wouldn't have given it to us to know. But it was not fun, and it was sad, progressively. It's like, oh, what other drama? More drama, more drama. It just never ends, right? Well, finally, we are coming into sight of the end of that story. The seeds of suffering. What has caused the suffering here and elsewhere? This is where we need to understand a bit about the Milky Way Mysteries, and we need to understand just a little bit more about the Milky Way in connection to the Bloom of Doom, as they've recently dubbed it, which was aka Daisy of Death, which was aka Flower of Artificial Life. All right. There is a whole paradigm of teachings on this planet, and it has been for quite a long time, that are called the Metatronic teachings, or the teachings of the Antichrist. They are the teachings of the 666. All this has been talked about in code in the Bible. And those teachings have to do with how to mess up your energy fields by doing nasty things with your Merkaba that you're not supposed to do. Merkaba fields, by the way, are simply the vortices of energy, natural energy vortices that circulate energy in and out from the light body structure into the matter body structure. So they're a natural part. But we will see what this has to do with what is wrong with the Milky Way. Now, science tells us that the Milky Way galaxy appears to have at its core a massive black hole, somewhere in the vicinity of what they've dubbed Sagittarius A star. We will find that it's not just Sagittarius A star that is the center of the center of the black hole, the center of the Milky Way galaxy, but there is something else. There is another burned out star called Abaddon. And Abaddon is another name given for a demon in the Bible, I believe, and there's another one that is connected to Abaddon that's in a different matrix, and that's called Apollyon. These words were in the Bible. They're all encoded. But what they were talking about was high science, not just demons and things that fly through the sky and grab you in the night. They were talking about, in terms of the day, what could only really be explained in those ways. Yes, they were consciousness. The Apollyon is a consciousness. The Abaddon is a consciousness. But they're also physical things. They're physical things that cause they're literally burned out stars in the core of the Milky Way galaxy that were caused by the use of Metatronic science. And Metatronic science is the science that the Atlantean technologies that have trashed this planet were also created on. There's a direct connection between what happened here, what happened with our sun, and what happened at the center of the Milky Way galaxy. And we're going to find out something fascinating, that the Milky Way galaxy is a fragment galaxy. It's a space-time distortion system that literally was shifted out of angular rotation of particle spin alignment with its natural galaxy. And I will let you know, just because it's exciting, that where our 15-dimensional natural matrix and its 12 stargates are, or started from, where the rest of us are in M31, the Andromeda galaxy. Milky Way was a part of that. And there is a space that you can't see that's about 2.2 million light years deep between them. And in that space, you have what is called the Aquial matrix. They are still linked. And when we go home, when it's finally time for us to evolve with our bodies or with new bodies, depending on which direction we go, because you can incarnate into a more advanced form if you want to, if you don't want to take this body with you. But we will eventually evolve home back to the Andromeda galaxy. And from there, we'll be able to find where we came from before that. Because there are some of us here that are from matrices far, far away on the echo maps. Some of us are directly from the Andromeda galaxy. We'll find some really interesting things, including some really strange illusions of space-time, like we've talked about Eartha and its relationship to Earth. And for those of you who haven't had that information, that's probably better. At the moment, you'll see where they all fit together. But we also find that Eartha is in the Andromeda galaxy. Now, those of you who have gone through some of the stuff with the echo maps of the God gates and with the vertical maps, like, wait a minute, I thought Eartha was surrounding Earth. It is. How can that be if Andromeda Galaxy is 2.2 million light years away and we're over here? How is it that Eartha is literally in our atmosphere and we can access it directly through our atmosphere? We'll see how something like that can occur, because that's precisely what it is. There is an interface matrix that we've been referring to as Ascension Earth, and Ascension Earth is part of Earth, and it is part of the Aurora system, as it's known, or the Aquiel system, and it is connecting directly. So there is a direct interface between the Milky Way galaxy and the M12 Andromeda galaxy. The Andromeda galaxy M12 is actually not called Andromeda in the Christic worlds. It is the Aquinos matrix. And Andromeda was a star cluster within the Aquinos matrix, part of which fell through a drama called The Fall of Proteus. A piece of Proteus that's left down here is called Procyon. So there's a whole piece of the history that had to do with the big one. This is the big piece where we find out where exactly is home and what it means to get back there. Because now we are in the Kali Yuga cycle, the end cycle. And the options out are Starfire, which is the natural Adashi turnaround, and that would mean you would be evolving toward evolution back into the Aquiel matrix Ascension Earth first, and then from there, finding out what your whole record was, where did I come from, because you need to expand back through the path that you came out on. So if you came out through the Andromeda Galaxy, you have to, came out into manifestation through the Andromeda Galaxy. In order to finish an Adashi turnaround, you have to go back the same energy path that you followed. So you'd have to go home through Andromeda. So there's a whole bunch of things. This is a huge paradigm of information for people that are just coming in, and the lovely people who have invited us here, from Holland. It's exciting to be in your country. It's also exciting to find out the significance this place had in the Joshua 12 line, because there's things I don't even know yet, but I was excited about what I've seen so far. So by the end of it, you'll find out that that Holland, and particularly the Amsterdam area, have something very, very special in relation to the Jesus code and the lineage of people who live here and who live here still. And those people carry something in their DNA that will allow for the ascension, the ascension codes that were regenerated in our faltering angelic human gene codes here to actually come awake and alive much more quickly. So there's things we're going to learn about that. And I wondered why. I knew we had to go to Amsterdam, and they're saying, yeah, we have to go there. And they said, why? But why? What's there? I said, don't worry about it. We'll let you know when the time comes. So we're in the middle of an unsolved mystery, too. They'll let us know a bit more about what that is. I think, how long have I been going? Because I can go and go sometimes. Because I was planning on the hour orientation, and then I'm well over that. I didn't start the Mylars yet, did I? Well, since you're here and I'm here, and it's early. It's early. There's two things I want to do. One will go quick. The other shouldn't be too long. I just wanted to show you these for those who haven't seen these pictures, because I think a lot of you have, but some of you might not have, from people locally here. I don't know how much information you've seen or not, but when we talk about Adashi crystal temples, I want you to, I would like you to have an idea of what that means. Now, what I'm going to show you, these are not them, but they look like this. Now, an Adashi temple exists in, first of all, we have smaller ones in our Earth's mantle. All right, they are huge crystal bases. All right, selenite crystal bases. There are larger ones that are actually in the Earth's atmosphere, where Earth's mantle is. Now, we don't see big crystals hanging in Earth's atmosphere because they're at a different angular rotation of particle spin and what's called a different BPR, or base pulse rhythm. But we can access them by changing our BPR and changing our angular rotation of particle spin. But what they look like, to give you an idea, I wanted you to see something that a few years ago, a very nice lady named Leila brought us these. And she is the woman in these pictures, and she had told us at the time we could show them. I haven't seen her recently, but I don't think she'd mind. But there had been a discovery in Chihuahua, Mexico, of the crystal caverns. And these are just surface level ones. There's ones much, much deeper. But I wanted you to see kind of size proportion and get an idea of when you're dealing with the Dashi temples. They're much, much bigger than these. Yeah, I want to show you which one first. Yeah, okay, that one. Yeah. Yeah, and then these two. These two. The third. Because it helps to have a visual reference and to realize that these structures we talk about are not hypothetical. They do exist in physically manifest form. So when you see these, it will give you that idea. I think that's Leela right there. Leela Hutchins, her name was, and they have a website someplace with more pictures and what they've been doing with it. But you see the size of these selenite crystal rods compared to the size of a human body. All right, that's just one of them. Just show them quick. I'm not going to spend long on them. But the ones we're talking about are hundreds, if not thousands of times larger than that. So these are little baby ones. But look at these. You have amazing crystal clusters. It's like being inside of a geode. Right? Imagine huge temple structures built into beautiful selenite rods like that, with staircases, crystal staircases that are literally carved out using sound. They don't have to take chisel to crystal. That hurts crystal. Crystal doesn't like chisel. What crystal does do is like to sing. And if you sing with it in the right way, you create the right sound harmonics, and it will shape itself to what you ask it to do. So if you want a window there, you sing with it, and it will put a window there because you asked it to. Right, so these temples are amazing, and I wanted you to just see, to get an idea of what we're talking about, that underground, indeed, there are these massive crystal formations, and that they are, the ones we're seeing here are actually part of something called the Nibiru and Diotic crystal grid system, which was actually, these were seeded into the natural crystal bases here. These were from a planet called Nibiru. They weren't natural to Earth. And they were used as part of the Atlantean technologies to run what were called the net systems, and they are still part of the net systems. Recently, because of a recent development of finally in September of this year, we were able to get the Hall of Records open, and we can now get what are called the Illyrian chambers in the planet open. And because of that, these will come online with the Christic frequencies. So there is a huge potential now, finally, because they have actually, there has been, since the year 2000, an unseen war happening, actually, kind of a tit-for-tat smacking contest, where the Christics have been working to try to heal Earth's Templar and protect it, and the one's representative of what we simply refer to as the fallen angelic groups, and we've named them and told you where they came from and what they did and what their history here was and all of that. Right? We've got all that detail. We don't even need it. Just the FA groups have been trying to progressively activate these and what they're connected to do the final kill on Earth and bring it into full black hole fall. Because Earth was a very, very special place, and we just learned this in the last Tribes 8 class. That Earth, out of the 12 primary stargates in this universal 15-dimensional matrix, in this Vecca, Earth was the one that held a full-on link directly through the Aquael matrix to directly through to Eartha. It was the one that had the ability that if the evolution here succeeded, we would actually be able to evolve the entire Milky Way back into its natural orientation with M31. So this is why Earth has been progressively and continually under attack ever since that Menti host was set. But anyway, these are now going to become our friends, as opposed to before they were being used to run frequencies that were progressively causing harm here. They were being used to run the nets that run on the Metatronic Merkaba, which are the 34-21 ratios of same spin spiral sets that are the sign of the beast. They create black hole fall. So, finally, these are coming into Guardian alignment we have been on a mission for a while, and this is the other part I wanted to put in. This will just I should take just a little bit of time. But for those of you who might not have an idea of, all right, so the work started in 2000, might not know the history of it at all, we'll just show you a little bit of what we've been up to since the books were released. I have to go down here. I'm not used to this being so far away. Start with that one, yes. Can you help me, please? Thank you. whole pack of them is there. No, I would like you to help me flip Mylars, if you would. I'm going to be falling on the floor with my knee the way it is if I have to keep going up and down that. Oh, dear. Well, you can sit down there that way, too. Excuse us. Well, if you have to run to the loo, maybe we're one of our many people that are always here. Anybody want to flip Mylars? There's only a few. All right, I'll just give you I'm not going to spend heavy amounts of time on this. I just wanted to show you, this is the history of just the work that we've done and the escalation of a drama that has been occurring on this planet. When we started, when 2000 happened, 2000 was an important year. Ever since Atlantis, it was known that was when heavy things were going to happen, because it was known how many years apart what is called a stellar activation cycle occurs on. It was known that in the last stellar activation cycle of 22,326 BC, where the gates failed to open because there was a conflict drama that took place between the Christic races here, the guardian groups here, and the various fallen angelic races, they knew then that the next stellar activation cycle, where the gates could open, would not occur until the year 2000 AD. So way back then, they knew that. This whole plan, there was a plan that has been progressively orchestrated to the point where the fallen angelic groups who were trying to take over this planet were literally, they built it from 22,326 BC and unfolded this plan all the way through the Atlantean drama that happened between 9562 BC and 9558 BC with the final fall of Atlantis, and all of the raids that have taken place among human cultures, our history, our known history, from, I won't even get into that part right now. There's too many different words. But everything about who invaded who and took whose country out from under who, it's all been about grid wars and which groups of FAs would control which groups, which parts of the planet and its ley line structure and its electromagnetic structure. So we had, when I completed my walk-in in 97 and the 33rd birthday of this body, and as we had the Voyagers books were written in preparation for the period of 2017, which was the period when we knew the stellar activation cycle was going to occur. We didn't know in 2000, or as we approached 2000, whether or not the stargates would even trigger open. And it was a great joy, actually, the fact that they did, because it meant that we could have healed the planetary grid distortion and stopped the beast machine or blank slate technology from being activated here, which is what the guardian groups ever since this period before were trying to do. Well, we ended up with, we had the Chris Councils in the beginning, between 98 and 99. The Chris Councils we were working with were called the Guardian Alliance Chris Councils and the D12 Liran Elohi Elohim Founders Races. So they're the Founders Races in our 15-dimensional time matrix of the D12 level. So these were the Guardians then. We had our Chris mission focus. We were in New Jersey at the time, we moved to Sarasota, Florida, which is primary Stargate 2, or planetary Stargate number 2, which is called the Gruel Control. And we were involved in something called the Christos Realignment Mission, which meant realigning Earth's Templar and the Nibiruan Dyadic crystal temples, which are those that one of those you just saw in those crystal pictures. We were realigning those to the Chris code, to the natural electromagnetic and mathematical patterns that go with the Chris code frequencies, as opposed to the ones that were being run from the Metatronic frequencies that have been programmed into these crystals since Atlantis, and were keeping the nets that are keeping our DNA down there. So our job was Christos Realignment Mission, and that's what all the work was about. We were attempting to get the planet into a planetary natural Maharic seal, which would have stopped beast activation, which would have stopped the nets, and eventually we could have had a very rapid DNA awakening and a healing of the DNA on a mass level, and Earth could have gone into what was called the Bridge Zone Project, which was a time shift back into its more natural alignment, where it could have began the long ascension on the program back through the Milky Way back to its home matrix in Andromeda. So we didn't get into it that heavily there as far as talking about the Andromeda system or anything. That's only recent. But we were preparing people for this period when the stargates would open and when the Bridge Zone time shift, the Bridge Zone Project, would be achieved. our education programs at the time. We had the Voyagers 1 and Voyagers 2. We had the Menti videos set from New Jersey. We started a whole series of workshops: personal healing through planetary service, evolutionary path of human consciousness, light and shadow. All these are just showing you the workshops that we've done. So there are 8 short workshops, of which one was an expo. And at that point, we were not yet doing Shields clinics, full-on Shields clinics. Shields clinics got into a tit-for-tat with fallen angelic groups, where literally we were trying to protect the grids or stop them from doing something nasty to the grids that were progressively trying to activate the beast machines on Earth. By the time we hit 2000, or January 2000, yes, the core gates did start to open on Earth. So we had a stellar activation cycle did indeed unfold. By September 12th of 2000, there was a group called the URI that formed. They broke an agreement they had with the Guardian Christic races called the Emerald Covenant. They broke that. It was called the Treaty of Altair. They broke the Treaty of Altair and issued a war edict against the Guardian races and the Christic races in this time matrix. And that's when it all began to get absolutely crazy as far as what work had to be released when. All right, we didn't want to have to talk about fallen angelics and about the history of the fall of Metatron and the history of the beast black hole machine. But we had to, the people we were trying to educate about what was taking place on the planet, for them to be able to run the frequencies that would protect them from getting harmed by those things, and to help them to know how to help the planet, to try to protect the planet from those things. We had to progressively reveal the more information. So we had to divert from just the Ascension course, which would have been all the fun stuff, the like Seeds of Creation and the everlasting story. That is the fun stuff. That's the great stuff that is eternal. It is the way Ascension works. It is the way the cosmos works. And you can take it or leave it. It doesn't really matter to me, but I hope you do, because it is a wonderful everlasting story of eternal life. We had to divert from that and start dealing with real practical issues. Okay, there was the final conflict drama was coming back as the Atlanteans had planned it to, where yes, they were going to go for grid conquest here. So we did this whole beginning in 2000. We went from, there was a series of escalations. This was the first drama escalation, where we started out just trying to do excuse me, the reprogramming of the Nibiru Dadic crystal grids, the temples, just to bring them back to a natural Chris code and get them off of the Metatronic code that they were running on since Atlantis, because the crystals run energy, just like crystals in watches do things with energy and electricity. So we went from there to what became the Christos reclamation mission. Now, because they were going to try to take the temples and crystal temples and activate them under the Metatronic code in order to set the beast apparatus in motion, at that point it was important that we tried to reclaim the portions of these crystals that had not been turned on the Metatronic code yet. So it was like, we'd show up at grids, they'd show up at grids, we'd show up at grids. For a while there, it was ridiculous. It was like certain groups who are, particularly certain channel groups, that are getting information. They think it's from good guys, but it's not from good guys. They're getting it, they don't know how to tell the difference, because nobody ever explained that to them. Their channels don't tell them the difference. They're, hi, I'm Toth. You know, yeah, Toth. Well, we give a whole rundown on who the ones were, what those names were associated with. Not the people out here. The people out here are innocent enough. They're just, you know, falling prey to being messed with mentally, all right, by these other fallen angelic groups. So you don't blame the leaders of the groups even, because they think that they're dealing with the right stuff too. Believe me, I went through my own cross-examining myself inside, outside, and upside down, and it wasn't until I had enough proof where I would trust my own line, you know, and I still double-check it several times a day, because down here with the nets running, anyone is susceptible from getting false information from the false memory matrices that are being run through the grids and through the crystals. So we went into this wacky period that began in 2000, in September of 2000. We had first come, it was our first trip to England, and we'd come over to do a series of workshops on Cathara. We got, I think, the first and second one done, and in the middle of the third one, I was literally attacked by something, and I had to stop the workshop, and they said, you've got to get home. You need to cancel the tour. I said, what do you mean cancel the tour? You know, there were like 5 more to go or whatever. They said, we can't even tell you. It's so bad, we can't even tell you right now, but it's extremely important to your safety and that of others to get home on secured grids where we can, you know, where they're secured enough where we can let you know what occurred. So we had to cancel the England trip, and bless us, he managed to get everybody their money back as fast as possible, that kind of stuff, so we could cancel it and get back. And he came home with me, and then we got married. We just met each other, you know. we had met. We had met each other in August on the Peru trip, and well, when the war edict came through in September, he kind of came home with me, and we ended up getting married October 23rd of 2000. And they brought us together early because they were planning to bring us together, but in about a year or so. But because the drama just went crazy with the war edict issued by the fallen angelics, they had to bring us together quicker and activate. Both. I was already activated as Speaker 1 Blue Flame holder, but to activate him really fast because he had the Speaker 2 contract and the Gold Flame holding contract. So it went crazy from there, where it was. They do this, we do this, or we do this, they do this, back and forth, and not fun and not pleasant. I mean, we became like the pariahs of the New Age movement, because most of the New Age movement is based on channeled material. And we kept looking, please let somebody be talking to the same guys we're talking to, please. No, it didn't work out that way. What it worked out with is we ended up having to take on our work as it progressed. They had to show and reveal certain things about, if you're going to say something's being done the wrong way and is dangerous, then show the right way. Show how it's supposed to work, first of all, and then show where right now it's deviated from that. That's precisely what they have done with this work. Everything from planetary grid mechanics to natural light body personal anatomy to the whole thing. They explained who was who as far as the fallen angelic rosters. They explained who did what when. They gave us yards and yards and eons worth of history, and of what the ones working the Christ teams did and what the ones working the Antichrist team did. And it came down to having to expose the Metatronic paradigm. And sadly, what's connected to the Metatronic paradigm are about 3 of the largest New Age movement spiritual development things that are out there. So literally one of them at this point has been telling people as workshops, don't do Merkaba technologies, they'll kill you. Say, well, you might as well try, because the ones they're teaching you already are killing you, right? So the worst it can do is maybe stop that, right? So it's been a progression of, we're here to teach Ascension, but Ascension got really to be a hot and heavy subject because there were forces here. They were not just back in Atlantis. We were all back in Atlantis too. People here, you've been in Atlantis. You have incarnations in that space-time zone, all right? Just like the fallen angelics did. And just like we are here now, so are the ones who were causing the problems back there in Atlantis. So Atlantis rising, we literally saw the manifestation of the Atlantean drama into the current times. And it's getting more and more obvious. It's going to be really obvious when they start lobbing World War III weapons at each other, because that's what they're trying to move it toward. So we just moved with each year. There was a series of steps. I'm not going to go through every one of them right now, but I just wanted you to see how this started and where the work was being given, a certain level of work was being given that was appropriate to what was happening in the drama at the time, and what we needed to do to protect ourselves and hopefully heal ourselves and awaken ourselves, get our ascension codes back online and that kind of thing. So all of the work progression had to do with dealing with the progression of the drama around us, that had to do with the fallen angelics trying to activate what was called the blank slate technology, or beast machine, black hole machine, that is plugged into these planetary grids from the Atlantean period. So we had the drama escalation where they issued the war edict, the FA councils up step 1, which were a bunch of competing councils of fallen angelics who were actually doing grid wars back in Atlantis with each other about what FA group was going to control them. They decided to unite forces, because our guys were going to make it so neither of them were going to get to activate the beast. So they united and formed the United Intruder Resistance, and they are the ones that issued collectively a war edict against the Christ races here. In other words, let it fall, or we're going to fight. We're going to attack your people, we're going to attack your things, we're going to activate the beast anyway. So it became one of those. And the Christ Council upstepped from there. From here, and this is before we knew how bad it was. We didn't know how many fallen angelic groups were involved. We didn't know how long the history they were talking about was. We thought Atlantis was a long time ago at that period. 955 out ABC, a long time ago, right? Then we had Seeding 1. Oh, that was quite a long time ago. Fall of Terra. Oh boy. We've already gone back at this point. The history extends back into, 950 billion years when this matrix was seeded, and 450 billion years ago, when something called our matrix in the parallel Akasha, called the Borgia matrix, had fallen, the Borgia Musala Alema matrix. And this is where a whole bunch more history took place. But we were very innocent in those days and thought it was just small, only 550 million years worth of history that we were dealing with. So it evolved through this. We had the Christ mission The Christ councils were upstepped from what was here. The Christ councils were the Guardian Alliance councils. Now, an upstep in Christ council doesn't mean they got rid of these and put somebody else in. What it means is if these guys were at D12 and they had access to information and knowledge pertaining to that level of frequency and consciousness, the drama just got too big for them. So they put on the next level of council in the Christ council stacks going upward. We were put here into communication with, where are we? Christ council upstep, with what were called the Janus groups. These were of the 13, 14, and 15. So they upstepped us from D12 contact directly to 13, 14, and 15. These were the Janus, the Rama Janus, the Vachi Janus, and the Grandi Janus of this 15-dimensional system. And with the upstep of the councils was also the upstep of the information. So the information evolved, and we got into speaking about, like the next level of things and what was happening. So the mission shifted. The mission was upgraded as well to an expedited planetary Maharic seal and the Christos reclamation mission. Now we were trying to reclaim those crystal temple grids from them so they couldn't activate the beast here. All right. Then this is the education programs that went along with that upgrade of material. Next one, please. We had 13 workshops in that year, and all of them, I believe, were grid clinics. Oh, and a Shields clinic, by the way, means it's a workshop, but it's also dealing directly with attempting to heal a portion of the planetary grids that's connected to the space that the workshop is being given on. So all of the workshops fell into that category as the drama progressed. In 2001, the drama escalation number 2 happened, where they launched the 9/11 cover events for what was activation of the Phoenix Falcon wormholes that are on the east coast of the Atlantic. And what the 9/11 event was in America was a cover event, because it would have looked really weird if those buildings that were sitting on a specific set of implant networks that connected to the crystal matrices, if they just so happened to fall because nothing ran into them, that would have been a little hard to explain. So it was set up as a cover story in order to hide the fact that there was going to be tremoring and potentially those particular buildings who had been placed on a certain set of implants in the first place on purpose by those who made those decisions to where those buildings would be placed, that they were going to come down with the activation of that wormhole network that is on the east coast of America. All right, so that was a cover story. We published it. I'm surprised we're still breathing, actually, that nobody tried to shut us up or shut us down at that point when we had to reveal that. And this is the point where I'm looking at us going, oh no, this is getting really bad. I don't really want to deal with this. But what are you going to say? Just teach people the light, love, and clueless stuff and just kind of let it all fall apart around them? People were being put in direct danger. They were activating the nets, which are the things that hang in the atmosphere and actually control the DNA. And they were going to finish the mutation of the race line, where we would have just been used. They were going to use our bodies as electrical conduits to finish the grid activations that were necessary to activate the beast black hole machine. And that was about pulling this system, this solar system, into other already fallen black hole systems. Because a black hole system, it's still in the body of God. But what happens with the black hole system is it no longer has its open link and circulatory system open between the full cosmic structure and the smaller location in that cosmic structure or where it's at. So black hole systems, it's like having a cell in your body that dies, where it can no longer have natural energy processes in relation to the other cells around it. When a black hole system falls, black hole systems don't just fall and disappear. There are certain types of fall that actually allow the forms to maintain structural integrity for a long time until the core energy in that planet or star burns out, at which point the planet or star starts to spew, and it will eventually implode and then explode and go into a full black hole status. All right, so there are other systems in the cosmic light body of Source that have fallen. Once they go back to space dust, which is the inevitable destiny of one of those, that space dust will get pulled back in to God Source consciousness field, the non-manifest part of God Source, at what's a natural starfire cycle. So you can go through a starfire hole, or you can go through it as space dust. It depends on what type of system you're in. So when we talk about creepies from black hole systems that have been invading this place, the fallen angelic ones, they're attempting to preserve their systems, their black hole systems that can no longer naturally generate their own energy, by choosing to abuse the natural laws of science and the natural laws of science come from what's called the CRISP code, where they have designed technologies by misusing the natural laws of energy and consciousness to form black hole technologies that suck energy off living matrices in order to sustain their own. They are vampire systems. And this is when we talk about the fallen angelics. They are the ones who have come from these systems because they went black hole status, because they were abusing the power, their natural power of electromagnetic energies in their own matrices in the first place, and that's how they ended up fallen. So, anyway, I'm just trying to, anybody that's not been with us for a while, that has just come with us, I want you to have a basic roundup of when we're talking about these things, what it refers to. Because all of this was covered in heavy detail in earlier work. So we just had the complete progression of this from, we're only in 2001, we're in 2007 now. So we had the second drama escalation in 2001. We had mission upgrade 2. This is where we went into what was called Rouche pillar activation and crisis intervention status. All right, we went, the CRIST work focus shifted to emergency planetary Templar protection endeavors and creating what was called Trion Miage fields for separation of the falling grids and the ones who could still hold ascension. So at that point, our CRIST education programs went into these set of information. Then and we did a total of 9 workshops and no expos. We went into full just workshops. Anybody that wanted to hear this material, this is what we were presenting. We're not here to like go, hi, I talked to aliens at expos and those kind of things. You know what I mean? So and at that point, too, what we were talking about was ticking off enough people in the New Age movement that they wouldn't invite us to expos anyway. We figured eventually maybe we'll just do our own, invite them, and see what happens. Drama escalation 3 and 4 happened in 2002 when a group called the Weesadex and the Weesadrax got involved. Before, we were just dealing with local fallen angelic groups from our main matrix that had to do with the fallen Anu Elohim and with the draconian race lines, to which the Zetas are connected to both, and those kind of beings. The Weesadrax matrix is these 2 fallen black hole systems are in something called the Weesalay matrix. The Weesalay matrix is considered our adjacent matrix. They're not even in our 15-dimensional Eka system. They're in an adjacent system. And to understand where that was, they had to give us the Eka maps of the God World gates, which are based on the Cathara grid structures, interwoven Cathara grids, so we could see where we are, where our 15-dimensional system is, in relation to where these other systems that we'd never heard of are located and where they're coming from. So a whole more of the history was given to us every time, where this isn't just something that's happening right now. This has a long history behind it. We had a long history with the Weesadex and the Weesadrax and with the other fallen races. So we were given not only the ascension mechanics that were pertinent to the time and the biological healing technologies that were pertinent to the time, but we were also given the history of who was involved, what was happening in the current drama, and what the Christ race's mission was in relation to that, in order to assist Earth and hopefully keep its ascension status, because it still had the ability, if this had gone well, to be an ascension planet, and it still would have. This solar system would still have had the ability to be an ascension system. That potential is gone as of March of 25th of 2007 because of the closing of the prana seed, the core gates in the sun. And the sun has entered Bardo, and this is now a falling system. So even though it has a long time to fall, it has completely changed status since when we first started. There was more hope in regard to that. So we had drama escalation 4. Weesadrax engaged the activation of what's called the Spear of Destiny, and the Weesadex engaged the activation in May of what was called the Archangel Michael Blue Fire Sword activations. These are all beast Metatronic technology activations. When you see names like Archangel Michael, and you see names like Toth, and you see names like Enoch, and those kind of things, all of those programs are part of the false memory matrix that they have been putting here to get us to buy into, so we would hand over the use of our own natural energy fields to compromise the grids. Here, spin your Merkaba this way. Sure, that'll mess up the grids real nice. It'll also help to kill you faster. Those kind of things. But it's been a setup from Atlantis. And this is one of the hardest things to recognize. All of a sudden, what seemed like a little possibly manageable world that we're in seemed totally hostile in a way that I could not even fathom, except I remembered. I remembered pieces. I had enough of my videos running from Atlantis, from my space-time there. I said, oh, that's who they are. Right, that's what that clip of memory was about. So I was assembling my memory as well as this was opening. We all have pieces of that memory. It's stored in our DNA. It's in the junk DNA, and it's in our cells. We'll be getting some of it back, too. So we went for 2002 escalation number 4. I'm not going to read every escalation or I'll be here till tomorrow. But I want you to see the pattern of escalation. And this is why the work has moved in the way it has, as far as what type of information was provided when. It's not, if everything had been nice and nobody was causing trouble here and trying to activate black hole technologies on this planet, it would have been simple. We would have started with the happy, happy, joy, joy stuff, which is what you'll hear tomorrow, the creation, the natural creation story, the eternal never-ending story, how that works, what an Adachi ascension cycle is, how it's supposed to work, and that kind of thing. So we would have started there, but we would have started a little more slowly and gently, so people had time to remember names of things, or at least I had time to remember names of things, because there's so many names of different parts of anatomy and those kind of things. It can be, we needed several dictionaries at this point. But that's where we would have gone. The reason we didn't wasn't because we want to focus on negative things, but the worst form of denial is denying that there's a problem. All right? That's the worst form of fear. All right? We weren't fear-based teaching at all. What's a fear-based teaching is something that says, I'm going to be light, love, and clueless, and I refuse to look at the scary stuff. That's going to help. Because if there is something happening on a planet that is potentially going to harm you, you're better off knowing what it is and what you can do to move yourself in relation to that so you don't become harmed. And that is why we had to go into some of the what were considered negative things as far as fallen angelics and that kind of stuff. It's not what I wanted to teach, but it was what people needed to know if they were going to understand what we are walking through on this planet right now. So the escalation continued. The CRIS work focus continued to move upward. At this point, we were asked to move to the UK, Az and I were asked to move to the UK, to what was called the Arc 12 site. This is where the arc gates started to become an issue, where the regular 12 planetary stargates, the natural ones, were going to fall. It looked like they were going to fall in relation to the beast, so they started activating what were called an interface gate network, the Ark of the Covenant gates, which were a bypass system in case this happened. So we went into that, and eventually we'll publish this so you can read all the small print. And there was a whole period of grid works. We went to Canada and to Greece and to Bermuda, and all of these were grid spots, Stargate spots, and we were trying to still recode the temples, the crystal temples, to prevent the full activation of the beast machine. We started. This is where we had to release the Secrets of Metatron, which was the fall of Metatron's story and that kind of stuff, and that's where we started taking on the New Age movement head on and became pariahs. Right? But I would rather be a pariah in a Metatronic falling universe than one of their saviors, if you know what I mean. If I have to speak about things that are not popular because they're actually revealing deceptions that are being put across on the public, because these paradigms are being people that are channeling and having experiences with ascended masters that pop in, and angels of all sorts. They're being given false information. They're teaching the information with as much enthusiasm and love as a being would that thought that they had found their way to God's source. But the sad thing is they're being taught things that are harmful, and they're being taught things in a way that allow them to not only be used to cause harm without realizing it, but when they are doing the channeling and those kind of things, these things stay as field embedding in their bodies. They are putting themselves at risk for full-on possession where they're not even in their bodies anymore, where they become assimilated. And we started exposing these things. We're the only ones who talked about that. It's like nothing against the idea of channeling, of wanting to be able to speak to the other things that you know are out there somewhere. But you don't let it come into your body and talk out your face. Because as soon as it interfaces with your neural networks, one thing it does, it starts to crash your DNA and starts to recode it. And if it really wants to, it can take your body from there and push you out into a space in your own field. Or it could actually chew you up energetically and ingest your consciousness and use it as fuel. So we had to tell some pretty unpleasant truths about angels and about false angels. Yes, there are real angels, and yes, there are false angels. And we have been being talked up a storm on this planet by the ones that fall into the false category because they have a vested interest in the territories of this planet. What's sad is most people think invasions will look like one thing or another. They don't realize that we have been in the middle of one since Atlantis, and if you can't remember Atlantis, that's fine, but we have been in one all along, and it's starting to show its face more and more. By the time any spaceships show up in the sky and everybody goes, wow, ETs do exist, right? It's too late by then. All right? That's the final straw where they come in to become the leaders. right? That was part of their plan all along. So hopefully we won't have to look forward to that. It depends on how things go in the next 223 years, but particularly in the next 10 or 15, as we move through the slide training that we're being given. And there's a lot of complicated things that we're just trying to understand about, okay, what can the grids do now, what the ascension potential is. So it's not all dire, horrible, and scary. We've had to talk about dire, horrible, and scary over the last 7 years. And right now we're going into a phase where that's done. Enough of that already. You do need to understand what it was, where it came from. But right now what's most important is finding what's most important. What do we need to know to help ourselves and our planet to reach the most possibly high Christic evolution that it can in the situation it's in? And that takes us into learning how to slide. Because as a collective, if there's enough human beings that have various coding in their bodies that can become slide able by healing of their DNA, they will be able to actually assist portions of the Earth's body to slide when the time comes. And we probably won't even be here on this part of the planet by now. By then we will be in Eartha or be on the Ascension Earth level, which is a different set of planes that interface with here. But we'll be able to help portions of this Earth body itself actually shift into the Ascension zones, or what is called Ascension Earth. And portions of the body of the Earth here that did make that slide would actually appear as island nations in the Ascension Earth planetary body. So it's a big project we're in the middle of. It sounds surreal, actually, to me. When I look at it, so look at the scope of the stuff we're teaching. Can we go home now? Right? Because I'd really like to just be like, I'm an artist. I'd like to paint pictures, and if people are going to know me, I'd like them just because they like my pictures. And yeah, that was if I get to have a normal life, which I don't this lifetime, so that's okay. But anyway, 2003, 2004 escalations. We had drama escalation number 7 happen in 2003. I'm not going to read every one of these. We'll probably have time to go over them, and if not, we'll just like print this out once it's proofed or whatever. So it'll be available on the net. Drama escalation 7. We had, again, the Chris Council upsteps, every one of them. We went from, I think I missed the one on the third, the last couple, but this was Chris Council upstep 4 to the, what are called the Adandrea and the Adore, which are on the Adonai, which are on the Adore side. Now, we started to learn here about the difference between the Itori side of creation, E-T-O-R-A, and the Adore, A-D-O-R-A, side of creation. It has to do with the structure of light body and spirit body spheres, where you have spheres within spheres. Some of them spin clockwise and others spin counterclockwise, but they're in the same space. We are in the Ettore system, which has a core-based clockwise spin, like just this core-based clockwise spin. There's lots of smaller spins, clockwise and counterclockwise in it. But in the same place as us, there is the Adore side, which is this system, same imprint as this system, but on the counterclockwise spin. They are both natural structures of Christic light and spirit body structure. So for real quick on Adores and Ettores. So we started to learn about that information here. Before this, and on the other page, I didn't read it, we had the next upgrade before these guys, before the Adore crews came in. We had the Ioni upgrades up to the Ionis levels in the Ekaveka system. So, and then we went from them into the upgrade of the Adandrea and the Adore, Adnane, Akasha races. So it's a progressive expansion into the higher councils that deal with the higher level information. And to the final end, where in 2007, in January, we were brought into what was called the Tri-River, the Crystal River Council. And these are the Aquarian councils, and they are literally the matrices of 3 Akashas. So we went from D12 and the Guardian Alliance up to the Ekaveka system, and then over into the other side of the Adore system, and then we went from there into the hubs with the Hathors, and then we went into the increase of the 3 matrices that involve the Crystal River host. So it's been a progressive upscale of the information, one after another, because the drama on the fallen angelic side of activating the beast machine here on this planet, in the solar system, and in the Milky Way galaxy has progressively moved forward to. And a different way you could look at it is, let's say there are probability lines, and we have free will within a set choice of probability lines, and let's say that the consciousness on this planet made certain choices that created a collective vibration, or BPR, that aligned us with a specific set of existing probabilities, where we did not make a high enough BPR to engage the probability in which this went well in 2001. All right, we engaged the fall probability instead of engaging the ascension probability. So it can be looked at that way as well. But I won't even go further than that until I have diagrams out that show the what's called the Illumeradana spirit body. That holds some of those keys. So this is just again, we're coming forward in time. We're only up to 2004, and it's already drama escalation 8, right? We have drama escalation 9, drama escalation 10, all in 2004. By the end of 2004, the Bridge Zone project was not capable. We lost it. We could not hold the Bridge Zone project. At that point, also, we had started in March, I think it was, of 2000 with the opening of the Hall of Records with our first trip to Egypt. This was supposed to be the first part in opening the Illyrian chambers, which allow for great things to happen as far as healing things, and among other things. That's putting it short. We'll get more into that tomorrow. But by the end of 2004, the Hall of Records had force themselves shut. They will shut after certain levels of damage in the grids show, and the Hall of Records had shut, which meant the big plan of Christic evolution, or at least intervention here, was not going to be able to happen. There were certain things that the Christ races could not do to help here if they couldn't get the Hall of Records and the Illyrian chambers open. And that's why it has been such a huge victory that after this mess of the last 7 years, the final, starting the opening of the Hall of Records in 2000, just to have them close again in 2004, finally, in September at the Virginia Beach workshop, they were able to, with the assistance of the group Shield that we run, anchor the opening of them here, and they held. So they have opened the Hall of Records as of September, and this is just the beginning. They opened the Illyrian chambers, the beginning of the Illyrian chambers, which is something you'll find out more about during the weekend, over the Tribe 8 class, which was this past weekend. So we're in the middle of massive action happening all around us, and the world just keeps going by with its briefcases. It's like, yeah, sometimes I feel like I'm in a sci-fi movie. I really do. Yeah. So we got as our councils would upstep to a higher council with better technology that could head off the ones who did something nasty in the FAs before. The FAs were upgrading too, and new competing ones were coming in from different matrices. Here in 2004, we ended up with what were called the Borgia Budhara and the Bellatrix Oberon fallen races coming in, and these had higher level technologies. They had Metatronic capacity, but they also had what were called time rip capacities. Time rips and wormholes and black holes are a bit different. They all kind of work together, but time rips are highly unstable but can have a lot more power actually than what a wormhole can. Wormholes and black hole technologies tend to run together. So before we were dealing with the wormhole crew, now we got the time rip crew coming on. Now these are the guys that actually are involved with Montauk and like in New York and that kind of thing, the different things, Philadelphia experiment. These were all connected into what was called the Phi-X network of wormholes that were connected to a much earlier, more ancient system of time rip technologies that went into the our parallel Akasha level in the Eka maps. There was an Eka-Veka system there that fell 450 billion years ago, and they tapped into our Eka. That's where it started. This whole mess in our system started with that, and that was way before the fall of Lyra that they started to explain to us when they first engaged the history here. So these guys started to get involved, called the Borgia Budhara and the Oberon. And we had Chris Council up steps as well. At this point, I think, did we upstep that time? No, there wasn't there. We'd already upstepped to, who were we on up here? Adandrea and the Adora, the Adonai. Right, so the Adonai. Before long, we end up with another upgrade to what were called the hub councils, where we found out there was not just the light body structure of existence, but there was also the 4 domains, the core, the inner, the middle, and the outer. And the light body structure that we were dealing with as part of the outer. So there were 3 more levels inside that we didn't even know anything about. And, of course, reality domains with them. One of the groups where they started to release the hub information were called the Hathors. The Hathors were the hub, and that's not Hathor, all right? Hathors are a perverted group of them, a fallen group of what had Hathor coding in it. It's Hathor, H-A-H-T-U-R. And the Hathors were the next level of council upgrade as we went literally into our core domains, into our core and middle domains of our creation matrix. And with it, they started expanding out our level of understanding, because light body technology alone wasn't going to explain this. You had to see what the hubs were, and that meant you had to see more of where creation from the first particle onward starts. And that's where we started to get into the Rasha bodies and eventually the spiritual body structures that we are focusing on as the most important parts now. So we're still 2004. Things are pretty much a mess at this point, but we're still going. We're still doing mission upgrades. We went into starburst, evac notice, evac warning, and Polarian host salvage, which was part of the mission. At this point, we're going into evac status. All right, we went into evac status as far as the Christ race is telling us our systems and anything that was planning to get out was going on evac now because they could not stop the activation of the beast machine on the planet. So that was not fun stuff to have to teach either. Next one, please. Okay. All these things we had, drama escalation 11, 12, and 13 happen here, which involve all this stuff. In January 2005, Starburst initiates. Starburst is a particular thing that happens before Starfire, that usually there would be more time. Starburst is also a natural thing that happens. It's like a reset of certain parts of the anatomy that a planetary system or a universal system will go through if it has certain damage to reset itself. And that should have been enough to actually reset here, where it would have given us more time and put at least part of the grids back on ascension potential. But the drama escalated more because more FAs got involved, and it went into what was called the Starfire cycle, where we aligned with the universal Starfire cycle. And that meant that we had to prepare for a Starfire. Now, a Starfire is a good thing. A Starfire is an Adashi turnaround. But it could look like not a good thing. If you're on a planet whose grids have been turned to mush because they have been recoded to the Metatronic code, which is the reverse to natural code, a planet that is in that condition cannot go through a Stargate, one of the galactic Stargates. It can't go through Starfire. It would destroy the planet to go through Starfire. So all sorts of other plans had to be made now, how to assist this planet in dealing with the fact that we are now, our solar system is now aligned with Starfire, and the Earth system is going into Starfire, and that means certain things can be done here to stabilize this system, but without a host, we would be French fries or something similar, stretched out and highly crisp. Right? So the stretched out part has to do with spaghetti and black holes and things. Some physicists have referred to it as like spaghettification, I think they call it. Yeah. So anyway, it's not. It had sometimes. We saw this pattern all the way through that. Sometimes it would get so bad, it actually got better. Where because certain things happened, and it made it so the things we were trying to do on the name of the Christ couldn't happen, that whatever got so bad allowed for something else to happen that was even better, a better option than would have been what we were going to try to fix it with before. So it's been a balancing of. It's almost like being manic depressive on it, where you go, oh yes, oh no, they did what? Oh no, oh we're doing this, yes, oh no, they're doing that. It's been like a roller coaster, this whole first cycle, and we call it a first cycle, and that we'll get into tomorrow or the next day when we talk about 6 cycles and sets of 6 cycles that form 12 cycles and natural tachyon cycles, which are part of the natural way universes are born and created and function. But anyway, we are just coming. We are releasing this information now because we are finally finishing a cycle, a full, what would be tachyon 6 cycle. And it means the work has come full circle, and it will now either crash and burn with the rest of what it stands for, which is the host, the ascension host, or it will make a BPR leap up into the next level and another level of expansion. And that is what the work is moving toward. And the work has always been about the ascension path here and about the gates, what we can do, how we can learn what it's about, and what you can do in an environment, a planetary environment like we are in, when it is time for ascension and you have challenges to that natural process. So 2006 took us through more escalations, escalation 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. 18 escalations of the drama. And escalation means where it was at one point when the FAs did something and took it and raised the ante and did it to another level, which required the Christ councils to do something in return to that, not to them, but to the planetary grids to try to protect them. And when it got to the point where they couldn't fully protect them, it was start evac plan, where prepare people for the fact that they may have to leave the planet if they expect not to be stuck on it, or if it goes into 3-day roll. Because one of the things that some of the FA groups had planned, and they had the technologies in place to do it, is what's called a 3-day roll, where they would literally reverse the spin on the light fields in the light body here, and it would cause literally 180-degree flip of the planet over a 3-day period. And it's like, bye-bye everything alive. You know, it's all reduced to kind of very wet mulch at that point. And that is another of the things that have been held off because of the work that the Christ races are doing here. And we represent the Christ races, and I know everybody claims that, so we just kind of put the information to you, and you can make up whatever your mind. You don't have to believe the paradigm. Some parts of it really seem out there because they're telling such a huge picture. It's hard to imagine that picture is even that big. Can you imagine that there are beings out there, clusters of beings, who know how to move stars? That's some of the things that have happened, where they have literally moved things out of their natural places and their natural orbits in our solar system. Imagine what kind of intelligence, not to mention potential equipment, it might take to move planets, to move, say, Earth from its natural orbit, which would be an orbit 3 band that has to do with the Rasha bodies, and actually push it into what should have been Mars's orbit. That's how we ended up with the asteroid belt. Had to get planet number 5 out of the way. I guess Mars was coming its way as planet number 4. I mean, this is a huge story. It's huger than it's larger than what you will see on any sci-fi thing. And it's so big you probably couldn't even make a very simple sci-fi movie, maybe a trilogy about it. But we are all living this. We are in the middle of this. This is going on whether or not you want to pay attention or not. So people out there that would rather, like go off in Archangel Michael land or go listen to this paradigm or that paradigm because it's pretty and everybody can go dance and smell flowers and talk to angels and all that sweet stuff. Great. It doesn't change the fact that this is going on this planet. It doesn't change the fact that what if this is true? I mean, it's even just a what if, reasonable doubt. We've shown so much reasonable doubt that if there's something you can do that, like, okay, even if I'll just say, maybe I'll take it, maybe I'll leave it, but just in case, if there's a couple things I can do that might, just in case it is true, make sure I don't, go in a path that I don't want to be in, where I lose my free will choice, right? That I could use my free will choice to do certain things. And the things we're doing right now is the main technologies have to do with going on the journeys. That first we learn to glide, glide, which is Rasha body mastery, and then we learn to slide, which is repairing the body sufficiently, the DNA sufficiently, where we can become able to biologically ascend again. And ascension has always been about passing through natural Christic stargate systems, which are the Cathara center structures and the Voida systems built on them that are inherent to the natural creation structure. So anyway, we had, this was 2006, we had 7 workshops that time, and they were all shield clinics. It was getting really, really rough during this period. The work was very hard. Everything was progressively going on security clearance and guardian time. Security clearance meant we wouldn't know what a workshop was until we all showed up. We didn't even have an itinerary, because if they had let anything out about what they were planning to do into the public arena, it would have been, the information would have been able to have been picked up by the fallen angelic groups and the people who are actually representing them on this planet, and they would have been able to do counter strategies to stop what the Christian people were trying to do to help it. So it all went on security clearance to the point where, the stress involved in having to come to a workshop, knowing there's going to be maybe 300 people there sometimes, that you don't know what the workshop's about yet, because you didn't learn it either. And when it would come through, I mean, if we say, well, we'd like to have a workshop at 4 o'clock, and 4 o'clock the next morning, it manages to manifest itself. Because we would be upstairs, literally embedded for 20 hours straight sometimes, writing out the new material, what it is, trying to learn it, how do you spell that, how do you pronounce that, that kind of thing, and then having to put it up on the board. So the Mylar systems, that they used to be nice, and they'd be typeset and that kind of stuff, we haven't seen typeset Mylars now in 2 years or at least more, because of this. So when you see the presentations that are going to be given in the next 2 days, please understand that all of us would love so much to have them all in beautiful color with perfect typeset and all of this kind of stuff. You won't see that right now. We have not had time to do this. I would love to have 2 more books out right now. It would have helped to have any of this put in books where people could take it home and study it again. And what was that? Because right now it's all just going out verbal. In the workshops, there's not even chart packs anymore, because we can't release stuff for publication unless we have time to go over to make sure it's all correct. As far as details, when you're releasing it for publication, it has to be correct. And I'm not worried about spellings. It's more crucial details. So you will see a presentation that has some at least decently structured black and white diagrams. They are eventually all going to be color. Eventually we'd love to do color coffee table book of the probably over 2,000 diagrams that we've done in the last 7-year period, right? But for now, I would hope you understand, especially people that are new to the work, it is that we will try to keep to the time frame, just so you know, because we know it's important that if you need to go home, that you're not driving home exhausted at bizarre hours, because that isn't good for people. And there's so many people that are that are of the new people that are coming in from this from Holland, that we will do it that way. So we'll stick to form, but you will see things that, yes, we wish were typeset. Some of them are, some of them aren't. You'll see messy-looking graphs, but it's better than seeing no graph, because the graphs do two things. They show, when you're trying to learn intricate structures of biology, cosmic biology, your own personal biology, this kind of thing, to be able to see it does two things. It gives you first a visual reference, but it is also a code. We use codes understanding that every image you see actually has a very specific scalar pattern and an encryption to it. And when you look at something, be it words on a page or a picture on a page, that information is energy that goes into your pineal gland and accesses your optical pineal apparatus that takes it into your central vertical column, that takes it into your body, your energy body, and ends up in the DNA, in activating DNA. So even if we don't have the pretty graphs all done, if you see a graph and get the basic orientation of reference just by looking at it, it will make that information available to you. All of the information in the graphs is frequency, and all of the frequency that any of these graphs will show are things that are part of your natural DNA template, part of your natural spirit body structure. So what we do with the graphs is to allow you to see sequences of information that go by that your logical mind can understand, so you have a better idea of what we are working with on a conscious level. So forget the blind faith thing. We're not asking you to do blind faith. We're trying to show you something, and you can make a decision whether you think it makes sense or not. But the other part is it's also making available, you might see a graph that looks like a simple thing, but if you can recall even a little bit of that graph in your mind, you can actually call back the whole block like a cloud of information stored in electronic form that hangs with that image. So it makes available to you the information that there is not ever going to be time to speak. So this is why we will put the graphs up even before there's time to make them pretty. Pretty is secondary. It would be lovely to be able to come out and have everything pretty and hunky-dory and that kind of thing. Someday maybe we'll be able to do this. Maybe this workshop will be the closest we've ever got. I would be really thrilled with that. As far as at least I'm showered tonight. There have been times with a security clearance that it is brutal, where I'll be working all day to get the diagrams done, the new stuff, the new information, to know what I'm teaching the next time I show up. And it will push the hours so far back into crazy times, like 4 a.m., that what am I going to do? Take time to take a shower, too? The people have been waiting for all these hours to get to this, and they're tired, too. So I will just come down and say, just don't stand so close to me, because I probably smell. Because I've been working for 20 hours on this mess, and now it's here, and at least I can show you. But this is at least, I did get to shower, and so far, things are running well as far as schedule goes. I will do my best to keep it that way if at any point, just especially people that don't know me yet, I do like to be clean and neat, and I would love my presentations to be more clean and neat. but please understand the reasons why this happens. It is not that I am irresponsible. It is not that I don't care about the people I'm speaking to or respect you. Time delays that happen they're just as hard on us as they have been on audiences, but they happen because of the security clearance. I can come down and chat with you, but I can't come to teach you what you came to find out from the Guardians if I don't have the material. And if I come down and chat with you to keep you occupied while somebody takes down the information so we all know what gets taught next, because it's the next level of information that most people show up for, I can't be in two places at once right now. So just if you knew and see anything like that, see me show up, well, she was clean one day, 2 days she's clean. So far, so good. The first thing that will go won't be the hours, it will be the shower. Okay, so the showers will go first. Yeah, this may be the only time you see me in a suit. I don't know. But I wanted to be respectful toward the audience. It is a privilege to be here and to bring this information. It is a privilege to be a speaker of this information, even though it's been difficult. I'm not even going to go through the rest of them. There's a whole set of 2007 escalations that we'll get back to that probably on Sunday. that explain a bit about what they are, because that's been like the free-for-all year, right? But it's where the highest level councils of what are called 3 Akasha levels have come in. They are the Crystal River host, and they work with all of the other Christ councils. They all work together, and they are assisting us in preparing for slide, preparing to assist the earth in portions of it that can still hold a host, preparing for slide. And we're all going to find out more about what is so special about opening of the Hall of Records and the Illyrian Chambers. And we're going to find out, which I know is connected to this, but I don't know how because it didn't tell me yet, are the secrets of Amsterdam and what Amsterdam has to do with the Illyrian Chambers. There's something there. And, of course, the Jeshua Code or the Jesus Code. So it looks like it's going to be a fun workshop, and even a possibly, time-wise, a sane workshop. I'm so glad you're all here. I hope it will be worth your coming, and I hope you will find something useful to take home with you and make your life a better place once you leave this workshop. And we will always do our best to bring information to you from the beloved. Sometimes it is direct live, by the way, if you haven't been to workshops before and you see me go into, well, I'm still me, but I sound strange. All right? I almost sound like I have a Transylvanian accent. It's not that I'm from Transylvania. No, I'm from Pennsylvania originally. But, but when there's a part of myself that is simultaneously incarnate on Eartha, and when that part of myself, whose name is Azara, when that part of my consciousness merges with me, and it's not a channel, because a channel is where something that is not a part of you is merging with you and shouldn't be in there. When I let the Azara level of my consciousness come down and bring information here, it actually changes the voice, but I'm still me, and I'll talk about it. And sometimes you can tell, like when that level shuts down, certain information that needs to be brought requires a bigger carrier wave. And the Azara part of my consciousness in the Eartha levels can hold that bigger carrier wave. So if you hear that, just realize what it is you're hearing. If you're new to workshops, you may think, what is she doing? Who is she now? No, I'm the same person. I walked in once, I'm staying. And it was a conscious walk-in, by the way, walk-in, walk-out. It was a soul agreement that was of a part of my own soul group that we agreed to do this. In fact, I was supposed to do the walk-in when the body was age 12, but because of damage that had been done to it here through certain experiences she had with the Zetas, we didn't get in until age 33, and then it was a mad dash to get the books written and that kind of thing. So I think that gives you a bit of an idea of what our program, anyway, is going to be about this weekend. It's, what is the title again? I just got the title. Yeah, I have to read the title again because I can't remember it. Legends of the Lost, Freedoms of the Found. And by the end of it, hopefully, you'll have a much more clear idea of the use of free will choice in deciding which part of the planetary history and herstory you would like to be a part of the Legends of the Lost or the Freedoms of the Found. But there we will talk about the freedoms, and we'll talk about many things that we haven't really talked about before, like the history, the her story, and the reflections of eternal creation that get into the 7 sons of the 7 sons, the Jeshua line, and what that has to do with now. Because there is an announcement they just made in Virginia Beach that we have explained before about how Jeshua 12, or Jesus, he was not crucified, he did leave through a process called resurrection, that you don't have to be dead. In fact, it's better that you're not dead for it to be performed, but it's a way of very fast regenesis of the gene code that will allow you to biologically go through gates. He left from Giza that way, went to a specific place. But there were certain things that were left behind that have to do with things we are learning now. There are things in our gene codes that will assist us in very rapid regenesis of portions of the DNA that will allow ourselves to go through resurrection technologies too. There's going to be, with this program, I forgot to mention, at the on Sunday before the session is over, the afternoon session is over, because basically there's going to be 2 main sessions, and they're the morning and afternoon sessions, and then the evening thing is an optional running of one of the techniques that's been given before. If you've not been part of them, you may want to be part of them. If you have to go home and be home before that, that's okay too. You're not going to miss any key stuff, and those journeys will be at some point released, cleaned up, so the sound is better, and released as some kind of package that you can, buy and use someplace on your own. So you're not going to miss anything major if you can't stay for the evening activity, just so you know. But there's going to be one new journey that is called Journey to the Hall of Records, and that's going to be done on Sunday, the end of the afternoon session. So that's one that usually every tribe class, where we have the tribe classes back in the States, that there's small groups of 24 people only that do like more active, what are called shield work and things. We always do a journey. There's always a new journey given, and the journeys that the other ones that are part of this program were given in various ones of the tribe classes. This one is a new one that's given specifically for this group, and it has to do somehow with Amsterdam, and I'm not sure how yet. They haven't told me that. So I think I could probably stop. Yeah, I hope this was an orientation for a change instead of a disorientation. All right. Thank you for coming. Okay, I can go over that time. Your patience with, yes, we're running about a half hour or so past schedule, but for the fact that we're even on schedule is remarkable for the way the work has been for the last 5 years. So far, so good. What we have to do in this block, we have a few graphs to cover this morning. Actually, I think part of this is the afternoon program as well. And it's interesting because we've seen a lot of people who have been with the work for a while have seen these graphs in various sequences flying by for a while. We've had some of them from the time of Cathar 2-3, and they evolved onward, particularly since January 2007. But this time, they sequenced them around a key graph. And it was a key graph that organized the whole sequence of graphs. And what we have is what will fall under the topic of Seeds of Creation, the never-ending story, and take us into the Atlantean legacy and our evolutionary starfire potential. But like in a large nutshell, instead of it being broken up like it has been, for people who haven't been with our work, if you can understand that the sequence of graphs that you'll see go by and the information explained was not given to us in this sequence at all. There were blocks of sequences of processes and anatomy that went with them. And we were never quite sure what came first, kind of like chicken or egg kind of thing. But they all fit together to form the light body structures and the spirit body structures that the programs, the ascension programs, are built on. So if you can appreciate, when you see by the end of the entire sequence, which may be the end of the afternoon, when you see that, try to imagine getting that in little pieces and how difficult it must have been to try to grasp the whole picture. You're one of the first groups that will have the good fortune of being able to see from start to finish an explanation of how ascension works with as much detail as most people could ever want in a lifetime, but also in a concise way compared to when each of these little segments actually took an entire workshop to cover. So it's a first to put the whole sequence together, and it is the never-ending story, and it is the never-ending story because it is the story of eternal life, perpetual motion creation, which is built upon what is called the Christ Code, and it is a mathematical program of organization of electromagnetic energy, as well as it is a spiritual program. So Source is both scientific and spiritual at once. What we'll see by the end of this sequence is we'll have a rounded understanding, first of all, the structures involved with cosmic creation that apply also to micro-creation. Your own body is structured this way. And what all that means in terms of what are called the Adashi ascension cycles. Once you see the structures and the processes involved with the structures, it should be simple enough, even if you've just come into the work, to grasp what we're talking about when we speak about ascension, and to grasp the fact that you are part of an amazingly structured cosmos that was created by intention and purpose by a loving source that is an eternal source and an ever-living source, and a source that is not ensconced within a physical body as we know physicality, that is beyond that form of expression. We'll also discover that we are also beyond this form of expression. It was one tiny little bit of expression is the self that you know yourself in, that is in body. You have the rest of your spirituality, your spirit body, your light body structures, all of those parts that you don't see right now are with you all the time. The process of evolution is actually turning on those frequencies of consciousness and energy into the physical body structure, which progressively re-spiritualizes the atomic structure itself in order to become what is called a Christed being, a being who is capable of ascension, of manifestation and demanifestation, of turning into light and sound and turning back again, of turning into spirit completely and coming back into manifestation. So we are all in a long process of progressing toward becoming Christed. And once you become Christed, it's like the cosmos opens up for you, because you have huge options as far as experience, things you'd like to experience, things you would like to know, things you'd like to manifest yourself as and experience what it feels like being. The most important thing of all of it is to become reacquainted with the fact that we were created as eternal beings. Right now, our bodies have lost part of that capacity through destruction of the DNA, and we can use the spirit body itself to begin healing that DNA so we can reclaim the part of ourselves that is called the atomic structure that has been stolen, and that has been stolen by large dramas that our local cosmos and universe have been involved in. And these dramas, when you look at the entirety of creation, are actually quite small. Source created a free will universe and cosmos. That means that we have free will. Once we are in an individuated state from Source, we have free will to choose to work with Source and follow the natural laws of creation that Source uses, the Christ code, to keep eternal life, perpetual motion, creation functioning. Or we can choose to take the opposite stand to that perspective if we want to. We were loved so much that we were actually given the free will to make the choice whether we would honor our Creator or not. The free will choice, if it were not there, would mean that we were in a dictatorship. It would mean that we were little subjects of a creator God that was bossing us around like little puppets. And that is what a lot of the religions teach, and that is false. Source allowed for us to have free will, because Source is not authoritarian in that way. We have free will only modulated by the capacity and function of the natural laws of science and physics that are part of the Christ code. Because the core law of all of that comes down to there is consequence to action. So Source doesn't get mad at us and throw us in hell if we break the rules of creation. And everyone that came out from Source into manifestation knew the rules when it started. So those who fell did not fall because Source didn't give them the same information that it gave everyone else. Everyone knew the rules when all of this started. The only temperance of free will, and if there wasn't one, eternal life creation would not be eternal, because those who chose to explore the will of opposite, or the path of opposite expression to divine will, would have destroyed creation a long time ago. But they, like everyone else, whether you choose to follow a Christic path, and that doesn't necessarily mean Christian, the way that word is used here anymore. The Christian teachings were meant to be these, but they have not become that. But if you choose to take the opposite expression of divine will, you have the free will to do it, but you are not any more protected from the consequences of your actions as would be a person who is choosing to use free will in divine service. So that is the one temperance. You are not judged by God's Source. You are not judged and condemned by God's Source. What happens in a fall isn't that God says, you're bad, you broke the rules so many times that you're going to hell and that's it. That is not what it's about at all. What it's about is every action. We are created in the image of God's Source. God's Source used its consciousness to create creation. Every time we focus our consciousness on something, we are moving energy and creating something. Now, we've been doing it unconsciously here because of the mutation. But if we move our energy in certain ways, when we have an awareness of how the structure of the cosmos works upon the Christ code, and we choose to work in cooperation with that, we will get the consequence in energy and consciousness to that choice, which means we will have a harmonious flow of energy. We will have eternal life flow of energy. We will have unlimited resources. We will have unlimited power, because this is the nature of Source, and we were created in the image of Source. However, if we choose to use our gift of divine will in service of the opposite to divine will expression, we still have the free will to do that. But what stops that from wiping out creation is the fact that you do have the natural organic laws of physics, which start with action and consequence. There will be consequence in energy and consciousness to the choice of opposite to divine will expression. And eventually, what that will lead to is the inability to turn on the natural levels of frequency into a manifest structure, and you will lose, at the same time, the awareness of the consciousness that is contained within those energies you can no longer turn on, which will give you a smaller and smaller perspective on what the cosmos is about, and it will assist you in making worse and worse decisions as far as treating others with fairness, because Source in first creation has created a universe, a cosmos, that is based on love, it is based on balance of energies, it is based on equality and fairness. It is not a hierarchy in terms of value. Everyone and everything, from the smallest to the largest, is equally loved and equally valued, even if they make bad choices. All right? So all of the little concepts of power mismanagement that we're so used to being a part of nature on this planet, these are not natural to Source, but they are natural to a consciousness that has used the will of opposite expression, or the choice of opposite expression, to explore the universe, and it finds, eventually, it ends up with limited resources and finite life, as far as the life of the physical bodies it is in. And it loses touch with the fact that it is always contained within the large cosmic body, which is the manifest body of God's Source. And when a being gets into that state, eventually their systems will collapse. Their physical body will die because they don't have enough energy coming in to keep the perpetual motion cellular regenesis process going that is part of natural life. And eventually, if it's a system, it will, like a solar system, eventually its central sun will die, and eventually it will go back to space dust. It will nova, or it will blow up and go back into little particles. And eventually, because it's still a part of a natural creation, that space dust, little units of consciousness, little particuli, will catch a wave back, an Adashi ascension wave back, and go back into the non-manifest field of God's Source consciousness anyway. So we are in a process that free will is a gift. It means that we can make choices that will either assist us in experiencing the kind of consequences that we would like to experience in manifestation, or we can use it in opposite to divine will expression that will give us consequences we will not enjoy. Now, if you enjoy finite life and limited resources and competition and survival of the fittest and all those kind of things, they are the result of a long-term focus on the opposite to divine will expression. And what I talk about in divine will expression is not God said to do this, but what God did was create creation in a way that natural mathematical relationships between different types of energy created balances, therefore set laws. There are natural laws of creation, and they are laws of physics that govern the balances of energies, that as long as those balances are kept, a form will be perpetual motion, self-generating, eternal life. It will not have to face death because it continually regenerates itself. There's a natural process that's built on this mathematical program called the Chris code. And that is the same set of laws that we all have to face in terms of consequence. There will always be an atonement day, and that has to do when you and your consequence meet each other. It's not that God is judging you, and there is not a judge that you will meet when you cross over, whether you take your body or whether you release your spirit from it and go on from there. But we all, on a daily basis, deal with the consequence to action. So I wanted you to understand a bit about the free will perspective and how free will is tempered only by divine will in first creation that was the natural set of electromagnetic physics realities that enabled a manifest creation to take place in the first place. In this way, too, it put God consciousness in God's consciousness itself in a unique place where it didn't have to play moderator. It could let creation go from it and love it all, knowing even if things went as worst as possible and a person or a system fell and went where it went finite life and ended up as space dust return. Notice the word return on the end. Space dust or not, you always come home. This is why God's Source does not experience the loss of a fall in the same way that we might if we are dealing with the consequences around us. So there are perspectives that as we grow and integrate more of our spiritual body and more of our light body structures and heal more of our DNA so that we can do that. There are states of progressive illumination that come with each of those levels of integrating levels of ourselves. Till you get to a point where what might appear to be a big scary drama that has to do with black holes and those kind of things down here appears very, very small from certain places, even from the place we've referred to as Eartha. The people, the Chris conscious people that are there, they have already gone through an Adashi return cycle and chose to come back out, which means they are Adashi masters. They have mastered the process of return. They are Christed beings. And they, from that perspective, they have huge empathy for those that are stuck in systems like this, still trying to evolve to becoming fully Christed. But they're not as worried as we might be when we see the scope of the consequences that are happening on this planet and in the solar system. They've seen falls before. They also know that, well, the falls are worst on those who experience them, and they're even harder for those who almost experience them but get out. Because when a fall occurs, if you're stuck in a black hole system and it falls, usually what will happen is the culture just degrades itself to the point where nobody notices. And because the consciousness of the collective progressively gets worse and worse, where people are killing each other more and harming each other more and all that kind of thing. So by the time that there is no ascension possible, most of the people there don't care anyway. They have no interest in a relationship with God's source, because the consciousness itself turns in on itself.